What if I told you that at the very moment Jesus was being crucified, the skies weren't the only thing reacting? What if in the unseen realm, just above the blood-stained earth and beyond the cries of men, two of the most powerful archangels in existence were watching and intervening? Michael, the warrior of heaven; Uriel, the flame of God, and the sun, hanging between earth and eternity. You've heard the story of the crucifixion 100 times, but I promise you, you've never heard it like this. Because hidden in the shadows of Calvary, in realms most people never talk about, something happened that defies logic, challenges doctrine, and rips the veil off everything we thought we knew about that day. So ask yourself, why did the sky go dark at noon? What was Jesus really doing in the spirit while his body hung dying? And what exactly did Michael and Uriel do when the King of Glory was pierced by the spear of a Roman soldier? Stay with me, because once you hear what these two archangels did at the cross, you'll never see Jesus or spiritual warfare the same way again. And if you're new here, welcome to Bible Mysteries, the place where we uncover the hidden, the divine, and the things no one dares to talk about. From angelic warfare to prophetic secrets, if it's in the Bible and it's mysterious, you'll find it right here. So buckle up, like and subscribe, and let's go deeper. Chapter 1. The Veiled War over Calvary. Most people only see the cross from the ground. They imagine the dusty hill, the Roman soldiers, the jeering crowd, and a bleeding man nailed between two criminals. And yes, that is what happened, but that's only the surface. That's what the flesh could see. But what if you could see in the spirit? What if you could pierce through the veil that separates the natural from the supernatural? What if right above that hill called Golgotha, there was a war happening? A war that was older than time itself? Let me take you there. The Bible tells us that at noon the sky turned black. Not cloudy, not overcast. Black. For 3 whole hours the earth stood beneath a supernatural eclipse. But this wasn't just about the sun refusing to shine. No, this darkness wasn't physical. It was spiritual. You see, in the heavenly realm, something was stirring. Above the cross in the invisible world that exists parallel to our own, the air was charged with divine tension. Angels weren't singing. They were silent, watching, waiting. The sky was not just dark, it was under siege. Lucifer, the fallen one, the ancient dragon who once sang in the courts of heaven, was watching from his throne of shadows. He thought he had won. This was the moment he had schemed toward for thousands of years. Ever since Eden, ever since he heard the prophecy that the seed of the woman will crush your head. Now here was the seed, hanging, bleeding, helpless. Or so it seemed. But Lucifer wasn't alone in watching. Hovering in realms unseen were two of heaven's most mysterious and powerful figures. Michael, the archangel of war; Uriel, the archangel of divine light and secrets. They were not just observing, they were positioned, standing on either side of the spiritual boundary between heaven and earth. Guardians of the moment the universe had been waiting for. Michael's appearance was nothing short of terrifying, a being of impossible height and strength, dressed not in gold, but in armor that pulsed with ancient fire. His sword was drawn, glowing with the names of God carved into its blade. His wings were not feathered, but made of a material that shimmered like galaxies wrapped in flame. Uriel, on the other hand, was like a walking furnace. His body radiated with the color of the sun, his eyes white-hot with revelation. He is not often mentioned in Scripture, but he was known in ancient texts as the angel of wisdom, prophecy, and divine mysteries. These two had been silent watchers across the centuries, guardians of God's redemptive timeline. And now, here they were, watching their Creator die. The earth shook, but the spirit realm was screaming. As Jesus groaned under the weight of our sin, something shifted in the invisible. Angels in the lower dimensions began to tremble. Demonic forces, sensing something was wrong, started backing away from the hill. This wasn't going according to Lucifer's plan. It was too quiet. There was no resistance. It was almost like Jesus was letting it happen. And that's what terrified hell. Because demons understand something many believers still don't. Power restrained is far more terrifying than power unleashed. Jesus had power, real power. He could have summoned 12 legions of angels. He could have called fire down from heaven. He could have stepped off that cross with a single breath and turned Golgotha into a crater. But he didn't. And in the spiritual realm, that silence was deafening. Michael looked at Uriel and said nothing, but his grip on his sword tightened. His body tensed like a lion chained, waiting for the command to be set loose. Uriel, glowing with white fire, didn't flinch. His eyes were locked on Jesus' face, even from the height of heaven. Because they knew something we didn't. They knew what was coming. Now listen carefully. Before time began, before the stars were born, there was a scroll. A divine scroll sealed with 7 seals, the redemption plan of God himself. And written into that scroll was every move, every prophecy, and every appointed moment that would lead to mankind's salvation. And at this exact hour, that scroll was opening. Jesus wasn't dying because he lost. He was dying because he was winning. And the only way to win this kind of war was to go lower than death, deeper than shame, and darker than sin itself, and then resurrect from within it. Uriel knew it. Michael could feel it in his bones. But even knowing the plan, they both felt what no angel had ever felt before. Helpless. They couldn't move unless heaven commanded it. They couldn't interfere unless the Son gave the word. And then it happened. When Jesus cried out, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," the cry didn't just echo across the skull-shaped hill. It pierced through dimensions. It tore into the angelic realm like thunder-shattering silence. It wasn't a cry of weakness. It was a summons, a signal. And Michael knew it. In that moment, he turned to Uriel, not with fear, but with reverence. And in the quiet between heaven and earth, the king who was bleeding on a tree gave an invisible command, one that changed the course of eternity. Chapter 2. The Invisible Command. No trumpet sounded, no thunder cracked, no angel descended with wings wide open. But every throne in heaven, every principality, every demon hiding in the shadows of the cross felt it. A divine whisper. It didn't pass through human ears. It didn't vibrate through the air. It moved through spirit, straight from Jesus' dying soul to the archangels who were stationed in the skies. And the message was simple. Hold the line. Guard what is mine. Now that might not sound earth-shattering at first, but when it came from the mouth of the eternal Son, bleeding and crowned with thorns, that command activated the heavens. Jesus was hanging on the edge of 2 realms. His body was in the natural. His soul was descending into death. But his authority? Still fully intact. And Michael, the war angel of God, snapped into formation. From the very beginning, Michael was heaven's general. He led armies. He fought the dragon in Revelation. He wrestled with princes over kingdoms. And at the cross, he wasn't just watching. He was assigned. He stood in a realm just above the Roman sky, sword drawn, but not for bloodshed. This time, he wasn't guarding a people, he was guarding a person, Jesus. But more than that, he was guarding a transfer. Because when Jesus took on the sins of the world, it wasn't just a burden. It was a legal exchange. Every soul, every curse, every failure was being placed onto him. It was a transaction so immense, hell gathered to witness it. And that's why Michael was there. He was there to ensure no demon interfered. No spirit of confusion slipped in. No accusation altered the covenant being signed in blood. Michael wasn't allowed to interfere in the physical realm. But in the spiritual, he was untouchable. He stood like a wall between heaven and hell, between the dying Christ and the realm of demonic legalism. But what about Uriel? He isn't the angel of war like Michael. He doesn't roar in the clouds or strike the earth. No, Uriel is flame. Revelation, light. Where Michael brings war, Uriel brings clarity. He brings the secrets of God into the minds of men and angels. And at that cross, Uriel's assignment was no less terrifying. Because in that moment, Jesus wasn't just dying, he was becoming sin. Let that sink in. The light of the world was about to enter darkness. Uriel, burning with the fire of God's mysteries, stood as the guardian of revelation, ensuring that what Jesus did would echo not just in the natural, but in timelines, nations, and hearts for generations. He released a wave of divine light across time, a spiritual ripple that would one day wake Paul on the road to Damascus, inspire gospel writers, and open eyes in nations that didn't even exist yet. As Jesus' blood hit the dust, Uriel moved. Now here's where it gets supernatural, yet rooted in Scripture. At the exact moment Jesus breathed his last breath, the veil in the temple tore. But that wasn't just fabric ripping, that veil was symbolic of separation between man and God. It stood between the holy place and the Holy of Holies, a place no man could enter except the high priest, once a year. But when Jesus died, that veil was destroyed. What most people don't realize is that veil was reinforced by supernatural forces. Angelic sentries guarded that holy separation for generations. And now, Michael and Uriel stood down, not in defeat, but in obedience because the Lamb had just become the bridge. The veil no longer needed guarding. Uriel released a final burst of holy fire, and somewhere in the realm of spirit, a sword was sheathed. The war wasn't over, but the battle for access had just been won. Pause with me and think, what does it mean that Jesus gave a spiritual command from the cross? What does it mean that Michael and Uriel were actively protecting, enforcing, and carrying out orders, even as the physical world mocked him? It means something huge. Even when it looks like you're defeated in the natural, even when the enemy surrounds you, even when the crowd calls you cursed, God is still commanding angels on your behalf. Your blood may be spilling, your strength may be fading, but in the spirit, there is activity. Heaven doesn't operate by what people see, it moves by what God speaks. And sometimes the most powerful orders are whispered through pain. Chapter 3. The Descent into Sheol. Jesus had breathed his last. The ground quaked, the rock split, the veil was torn. But while men stood in silence watching a lifeless body hang in the midday darkness, something far more terrifying and glorious was happening beneath their feet. Because Jesus, the sinless, spotless Lamb of God, was descending into Sheol. Not symbolically, not poetically, spiritually, literally, eternally. And he wasn't going alone. Michael followed, Uriel followed. Not to protect him, no, but to witness what no angel had ever witnessed before. The king was about to walk through hell's gates uninvited and unchallenged. What is Sheol? Before we move forward, let's make this clear. Sheol isn't hell the way Hollywood pictures it. In the ancient Hebrew understanding, Sheol was the realm of the dead, a waiting place divided into compartments it held. The wicked in torment, the righteous in peace, often called Abraham's bosom, and a gulf between them that no man could cross. But Jesus wasn't a man now. He was the Word in spirit form, still carrying the scars of the cross, still wrapped in the weight of sin, not his own, but ours. He entered Sheol, not as a victim, but as a king. And the moment he stepped in, the entire underworld trembled. The fallen watchers, the chained giants of the flood, the ancient rebels locked in shadow. They felt something shift. Something foreign was walking through their prison. Lucifer felt it too. He had left the hill satisfied, thought it was done. But now, his kingdom was being invaded. Without a sound, without an army, without even the strength of breath, Jesus was marching through hell with the authority of heaven. And behind him walked Michael, silent, glowing, furious. And Uriel, burning with holy flame, lighting the darkness. The Psalms actually prophesied this moment. Lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors. And the King of glory shall come in. Psalm 24:7. Now read that again with this moment in mind. Jesus walks through the shadow dimension of the dead and approaches the ancient gates of captivity. Gates older than any Roman Empire. Gates forged in rebellion. And what does he do? He doesn't knock. He speaks. Not loud, not dramatic, but with eternal authority. Open. And the gates begin to groan. Not because metal moved, but because legal chains were breaking. The role of Michael now, here's where things get intense. Michael, though known as the Angel of War, wasn't there to fight. He was there to enforce. Because in that moment, Jesus wasn't making a request. He wasn't bargaining. He wasn't pleading for keys. He was taking them. The keys to death, the keys to the grave, the keys to every prison of the soul. And Michael stood as heaven's witness, sword in hand, declaring in the spirit realm, "This transfer is lawful." While Michael enforced the authority of Christ, Uriel did something unimaginable. He carried a portion of the sealed mysteries of God, locked away since the beginning of time. And as Jesus descended, Uriel began to unveil them in the Spirit. Mysteries the prophets longed to see. Mysteries the angels desired to look into. In the heart of Sheol, Uriel opened a scroll of light. And as he did, the truth of the cross began to flood the underworld. Souls who had waited in the promise, they saw it. They saw the fulfillment. They saw the Lamb. They saw the light. And they rose in glory. This wasn't just a descent. It was a jailbreak. Abraham, Moses, David, Elijah. Finally, as Jesus stood in the deepest part of death, he stretched out his hand. And in the spirit realm, keys appeared, not crafted by men, not forged in fire, but etched with eternity. The key of Hades. Lucifer couldn't stop it. No demon dared speak. And as Jesus took those keys, he turned to Michael and said just 3 words. Time to rise. Here's what most never realize. Resurrection didn't start at the tomb. It started in Sheol. It started when death itself had to bow. When chains fell from centuries of bound souls. When angels lit fires in forgotten dimensions. When Michael stood guard and Uriel unsealed destiny. Jesus didn't sneak out of death. He conquered it from the inside. And when he rose 3 days later, it wasn't just for himself. It was for every soul he carried with him out of that darkness. So now you know, when Jesus was nailed to that cross, he wasn't abandoned. He wasn't weak. He wasn't defeated. He was commanding angels in silence, issuing orders from agony, overthrowing hell with nothing but his blood and obedience. Michael stood with sword in hand, not to fight flesh and blood, but to guard the transfer of eternal power. Uriel burned with the mysteries of God, not just to observe, but to illuminate everything that had been hidden since the beginning of time. And while men wept and Rome laughed and demons shrieked in confusion, heaven stood to attention. Because the moment Jesus said, "It is finished," Michael raised his blade. Uriel sealed the scroll, and eternity shifted. It means you were never meant to fight alone. It means even in your lowest moment, when your body is broken, your mind is dark, and your prayers feel unanswered, heaven is still moving. There are angels on assignment. There is a plan unfolding. And there is power in your silence. Because sometimes your greatest victory comes not when you shout, but when you endure. Just like he did. So I ask you again, what really happened on that cross? Why did the sky turn black at noon? Why did the veil tear? And why? Why were 2 of the greatest angels in creation silently standing over a bloody, brutal scene? Because it wasn't just death. It was divine strategy. Sacrifice with orders. A king. Laying down his life. Not just to die, but to take back everything we lost. Michael knew it, Uriel saw it, and now you're seeing it. 2. Now I want to hear from you. Which moment shook you the most? Was it the angelic war behind the invasion of Sheol or veil? The moment Jesus took the keys? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't just watch. Join the revelation, and if this opened your eyes, share it, like to subscribe. Because what's coming next, you won't believe it either.